On a cool, rainy, eerie night, two men working for a small janitorial company in Denver, Colorado were doing a move out cleaning on a giant red and brown bricked mansion. Since the previous owners had died and they had no one left in their family to inherit the property, the state claimed it. What should have been a basic clean turned into the worst night of their lives. The mansion was located in a relatively safe area in Denver, a neighborhood not known for home invasions or robberies or really any type of crime. It was primarily known for its clean, professional, and safe reputation. The two men got out of their cleaning van, grabbed their supplies, and started walking to the mansion's entrance. The city had already came through and sold or thrown away all of the furniture, paintings, jewelry, or other valuables, so the only things left inside the house were small amounts of trash, large amounts of dust, and really just broken property. The only things left to do inside the mansion was to vacuum, sweep, mop, and dust everything, and as well as collect any trash remaining inside the place. The two men, named Rick and John, had been doing janitorial business for over 10 years, but they had never had an unsettling feeling like they were experiencing inside this mansion in question. The owners were a relatively young couple named Henry and Maria. Henry being 31 at the time of his death, and Maria, well, she was 28. So, not a usual age to die, especially because their cause of death was unknown, but there was no foul play suspected. When their bodies were discovered, there was no visible injuries on the body, there was no forced entry, none of it. But the mansion had 3 floors: the basement, the main floor, and the upstairs. Around an hour and a half into the clean, they had already finished the basement and the main floor with no issues. But it was when they went upstairs, they started having really, really weird things going on. For instance, the cleaning chemicals would be moved, despite Rick and John being in the same room, or the lights would start flickering. Now, it's an old mansion. It was built in 1921, so that's not really that strange. But things got really weird, especially when the vacuum started to turn on and off and started to violently shake. John walks over to the vacuum to turn it off and check to see if anything's trapped under the belt, before a large cloud of black smoke and a loud screech can be heard. When the smoke appears, he backs away from the vacuum, choking on the smoke. He quickly turns off the vacuum, fanning away the smoke from his face. That's when he notices blood dripping onto the hardwood floor. The vacuum had been placed on the landing. The upstairs completely made a carpet, at least the floor. But on the landing, it was just hardwood floor. Upon closer inspection, it was discovered that a mouse had been shoved inside the vacuum cleaner. Now, their first initial thought was the mouse had just climbed inside and died. But really, that made no sense. For one, the mouse looked, just the positioning of the body, it looked like someone had grabbed it and forcefully shoved it inside the vacuum. And 2, the vacuum cord was still wrapped up. It was still coiled up onto its side, so there was no power source to turn the vacuum on. Before John could react to this, he looked up and he saw Rick shaking and pointing. It was them, the dead couple. But their appearances were drastically different. For instance, Maria had her mouth sewn shut and her left eye was completely missing, with blood leaking out of the wounds. Her stomach had been slashed open with her intestines trailing behind her. And Henry didn't look any better, with both of his eyes missing as well as all of his teeth. His right hand looked like it had been crudely chopped off with a hacksaw or maybe even a meat cleaver. Both of his knees look like they have been blown out by what appears to be a shotgun. The reason why I say shotgun is because you can see smaller holes inside his pant legs, like the spread of pellets. Henry then grabbed Rick with his one hand and dragged him into a bedroom, with the door slamming shut behind them and locking. Following was the sounds of metal grinding, like an axe being dragged across the floor, and blood-curdling screams coming from Rick before dead silence. John, after witnessing all of this, tries to run down the hallway to get to the stairs. Maria sees this and chases him. She chased him to the top of the stairs, grabs him, and then the mansion goes completely dark. Pitch black, as a matter of fact. When the power is restored, all four are nowhere to be seen. They're nowhere to be found. And to this day, Henry and Maria's deaths remain a mystery. And Rick and John, they both remain missing.